No, we wouldn't send it to me. He's so cheapskate. All right, gonna continue with our study on apologetics. We spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks looking at the Bible, the Word of God, the validity of it, the manuscripts that are there. It is the best documented document on the planet. More manuscript evidence, more historical evidence. It's great, the information we have out there. This particular section we're in is taking a look at some of the evidence for the existence of God, the evidence of creation and those kinds of things. Probably my favorite set of this body of information is what we're going to take a look at tonight, and that is some ideas about design that we find, not only design in the universe, but also design in the human body and design in different systems that we see on the planet. And some of this stuff I'm just going to have to read out of my notes because, well, there's a lot of information here, numbers that I don't remember. So in order to get them right, I'll be reading some of the stuff here. Our universe is an amazing place, and I want first to think for just a little while about the tremendous size of our universe. So here's just a picture from space, out into space. Each one of those little dots those are galaxies. And there are some 20, there's about 1 billion galaxies out there that we know of. It is estimated from one end of the universe to the other is about 20 billion light years. Now, I can't even conceive how much that is. Of course, a light year is the distance that light would travel in a year. So that's a considerable distance. And that is just as far as our current telescopes will see. It is estimated there are 25 trillion stars. I don't even know how big a number that is. Dr. Hardy, that's probably more than you get paid, isn't it? Yeah. Those are big numbers.
You can divide that by
about 25 trillion.
About 500 billion, and I'm still not even close.
My personal conviction on our universe is that I do not believe our universe has an end. I believe our universe is eternal. I believe as long as we are able to find bigger and better, create bigger and better telescopes, that we will be able to see further and further. We're going to find more and more design, more and more stars, more and more galaxies that are out there. We just can't see far enough right now to see to the end of it. So, yes, sir.
And light travels at 186,000 miles per second.
Per second, that's
so
correct.
However many seconds in a year times 186,000.
That's right.
Is 1.
And then times 20 billion. So yeah, so it's huge. Is the point of this? I'll have some more to say about this in just a minute. So if we kind of zoom into our galaxy, here's kind of a bird's eye view of the Milky Way galaxy. We're familiar with its design and whatnot. It's really kind of shaped like an egg, in the middle. It kind of poofs out a little bit. We are somewhere there where the arrow is pointing, so we're there and the sun is there. And of course, what's going on in all of those mass of stars and stuff is the earth is spinning and the sun is spinning and the moon is spinning and everything is being held together and we are actually in an orbit that goes around in this Milky Way galaxy. I don't remember how long it would take us, again, several million years to make one lap around in this Milky Way galaxy. At any rate, we again get this idea of size. I jotted down a couple of passages just to remind us. Psalm 19, the psalmist says, "The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands." Now, when we think about the expanse of the heavens, we're talking about this 20 billion light years of distance that's out there. And what does that tell us about the hand of God? It's pretty significant. It's pretty big. And also, like I said, I don't think there is an end to our universe. Okay? I think it goes on, it just goes on eternally. And God is the only one who can do something like that. And I just believe that he did. Psalm 8 says, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers." Isn't that interesting? The work of your fingers, is our sky, our universe out here. The moon and the stars that you have ordained. What is man that you are mindful of him? What an amazing verse. To think that this little insignificant ball of cells in that ginormous thing is what God is interested in. To me, that's just incredible. That is fantastic. So our universe is huge, and then when we come in and we begin to look at the earth and the moon and the sun, as I mentioned, everything is working together. The earth, the moon, and the sun are in an exact location. They are the exact distance from each other. They are moving at the exact velocity in an exact spot in space that allows life to happen. And one thing that we know about our universe is that everything is spinning. Everything is spinning, okay? And there's a deal in physics that's called the conservation of rotation. And that means that with all of the forces that are out there, that the net force of everything is zero. Okay, so one of Newton's laws is for every force there's an equal and opposite force. Okay, for every action there's equal opposite reaction. So everything amounts to zero at the end. So all of the spinning that is going on out in space has a sum of zero. Okay, so if you were to take a handful of stuff and throw it up in the air and try to get it spinning, what happens to the spins? They disintegrate to nothing. So what keeps everything spinning? What keeps everything spinning out in space? Well, yeah, from a natural point of view, the different gravities that are working. If something is closer to something than something else, that spinning property is going to deteriorate, which then is going to cause something else to deteriorate. Everything is spinning at the exact right distance with the right masses, exhibiting the right forces for stuff to even exist. Because we know, and we've tried this, you can start stuff spinning even in a vacuum where there's no friction against it. If you have two different bodies spinning, they will fight against each other and deteriorate. And that is true in our universe. Everything is rotating appropriately. The sun, the earth, the moon, and our solar system. Everything is moving, and then all of those little bodies are all spinning, and all of those little bodies have other little bodies, little moons, and those little moons are spinning, and then you go, I'm getting ahead of myself, so everything is spinning. All things rotate at the rate that enables life to exist on this planet, okay? The velocity that we spin and rotate and then with the moon and the gravity that the moon exerts on the earth, that's what enables life. We can't have life here without the earth spinning and without the moon spinning and without the sun giving the energy at the correct distance.
Well, we have to remember too, that everything has to be tilted at just so in
That's
order
right.
for all that to work as well.
Yeah, that's right. And we're gonna get there. Everybody always jumping ahead. Now, before we get to some of the tilter and stuff, we think about how big the universe is. I want for us to now go the other direction, okay? And I want for you to think about the smallest of particles. Guess what the little smallest particles do?
Spins.
They spin. Everything spins. Everything spins. So we go inside, stuff, and we find atoms, and then we go inside atoms, and we're able to break them apart, and we find these other little things that are in there, and we take those little things and we break them apart, and we find these little things called quartz. And I believe if we had the technology, we could if we keep a quartz alive long enough, we could probably break it as well. I do not think there is a farthest distance. I do not believe there is a smallest either. I believe size goes infinite in both directions. So you think about dividing by zero in mathematics. So Dr. Hardy, when you divide by zero, what do you get?
Catastrophe.
You get, right, we don't know what happens when you divide by zero, but we can get infinitely close to zero. So you divide by 1/10, and then you just add zeros. Divide by 100, divide by 1,000, divide by 10,000. You can do that infinitely, right? And so that's the concept here with size. And just like you can go 10 to the first, 10 to the second, 10 to the third, big, you can do that 1 over that and go small. Mathematics tells us that the universe is infinitely large and infinitely small. Again, I just believe God's a pretty powerful guy. He has covered his bases pretty well. As we think about the earth has the right tilt to it. I've got a picture I'll show us here in just a minute to illustrate some of this. The tilt it doesn't matter, but it's 23.5 degrees, and it just happens to be the perfect amount of tilt to help everything flow on our planet so that we have seasons, so that we don't get too close and burn up or too far away and freeze to death. We have the perfect amount of water on our planet. So some of you science people, how much water we got on our Earth? About how much? 70% or so. Okay. What does water do for us?
Keeps us alive.
But how does it keep us alive? So we got to breathe, right? Did you know that about 90% of the oxygen that we need comes out of the ocean? About 90%. If we didn't have as much water on our Earth as we do, we would die because we would run out of oxygen. So there's the right amount of water that produces the right amount of oxygen. Now, there's an interesting connection, I don't know what that word is, between animals and plants. So what do we breathe? Oxygen, and we exhale carbon dioxide. And plants breathe carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. Now, who would have come up with that? You know?
Symbiotic relationship.
There you go, symbiotic. Isn't that awesome that those two things work together like that? The water cycle, the air cycle are both perfect for life to exist and be sustained on our planet. If things were different by just a very small fraction, life could not exist. The moon, I was talking to my wife this morning. I have never really done much reading on the moon, and for some reason, I was doing some research for this class, and I was watching some YouTube videos, and there's a guy on there that his expertise is he loves the moon, and so he was talking about the moon. And I learned some things about the moon that I didn't know, and I thought, hey, I'll share them with you guys. So The moon is relatively large in comparison to the other satellite bodies in the universe. So our moon is about 1/4 of the mass of the Earth. If we look at the other satellite bodies that are around the other planets, they are infinitesimal, little bitty things, okay, that circle these other planets. They have a very insignificant role in anything to do with anything on those other planets. When you get a mass as big as 1/4, and you bring it in as close as you do, all of a sudden the mass of the moon has an effect on our planet, okay? And fortunately for us, it has a very good effect. The moon also has a very unique orbit around the Earth. Now I'll show you this picture. So there you can see the Earth and the moon and the sun. Of course, there's our orbit, there's our elliptical orbit of the Earth going around. And there you can see the elliptical orbit of the moon. Now, of course, when we get out in space, we're in 3 dimensions. And our Earth pretty much stays in a plane. And it stays in a plane. It may not be flat like this, but it stays in a plane basically around the sun. The moon also stays in the same plane, okay? And it stays in a plane the same as this. So that as the moon rotates around, so the moon's doing this as the Earth is doing this, okay? Staying in the same plane as everything that's coming around like this. And that's what allows the tides, that's what allows the change in seasons, is that gravitational force that is changing like this. Now here's what's interesting about our moon. At least every other one that I was able to find, every other satellite moon follows the tilt instead of the plane. So you can see how the tilt is there of our planet. That's our tilt, that thing that's coming up. Most satellites around Jupiter and those kinds of things will circle this way. Now, if our moon circled this way, like everybody else, we couldn't have life here. There would be such a dramatic change from season to season that we would burn up and freeze and burn and freeze and burn and freeze because of the moon. Anyway, I just thought that's one of the most amazing. I didn't ever know that before. I just thought that was one of the most amazing things. Is all that. So we also know all that stuff is spinning. Does anybody know how long does it take the moon to make one rotation?
Are you talking about one rotation on its own axis?
Yeah, one rotation on its own axis.
About 29 days.
Yeah. So those are our months. So the moon is spinning, but it's moving a whole lot slower than we are. And I guess everybody knew this, we only see one side of the moon. The face constantly faces us, which is just kind of strange, in my opinion.
It does that because it rotates on its own axis.
That's right.
At the same speed that it revolves around the Earth.
That's right.
So it takes it about 29 days to complete what we would think of as an Earth day.
That's right. Yeah, a day on the moon is basically 29 of our days. So, just interesting to me that the moon, at any rate, everything is spinning. Okay, and again, I believe its velocity, it's what we think of as seemingly slow spin, has to do with how all this fits together. It's the conservation of angular momentum. Okay, it's part of that piece in our universe. Let's see, it has a unique the moon stabilizes the tilt of our orbit. Again, without those gravitational forces, our Earth would lose its tilt. And so it helps keep everything put together. The moon causes the changing of the seasons. The moon governs our tides, which that's probably its most famous for, is the tides. It also helps direct animal migration. which I didn't know that until I was watching this guy's video. And then I read it in the encyclopedia that they believe that it does indeed help direct animal migration. So the moon is a pretty neat character. It needs to be that size. It needs to be the correct distance. It needs to be at the right orbit. It needs to be in the right spin. And kaboosh, there it is. Accidentally, something blew up, and boy, are we fortunate that all that happened for us. The Earth is exactly the right distance from the sun, the exact distance from the moon. It's the right diameter. It has the right atmospheric pressure, which again is huge. It has the right tilt, the right amount of ocean, the right mass. Now, here's the other thing that to me is just like the cherry on top of all this. All of these things must come together at the same time. If they don't, life will not exist on our planet. This idea that it grew slowly over billions and billions of years is ridiculous. That means that all of this had to be put together instantaneously. Again, don't get me started there, I just get mad. Time and chance cannot produce this. Okay? It cannot. This is just one little bitty thing of design. And I'm already aghast that there's any other option other than that. Anyway,
all the other planets are in the same plane as Earth. And were they not where they are, again, Earth's orbit would change.
That's right.
It wouldn't be where it is.
That's right. So, yeah.
Which would affect whether or not life could exist on Earth.
Yeah. And on and on and on and on these things go. It is mind-boggling. God has produced so much evidence. I think that, wasn't it the Apostle Paul said, men are without excuse? It's right, 120 of it. We see why. It doesn't take much for people to know there was a God that did this. Now, they may not know details about God, they may not know details about Christ, but they will know by looking that God exists. Somebody created this. Couple more verses.
By the way, check it out tonight. Did you see it when you came in? It looks like a paper moon. It's amazing.
Oh, the moon, yeah, the moon's a pretty neat phase right now. We saw it this morning. We were out driving at 5 o'clock this morning. The moon's absolutely gorgeous.
That's unreal.
Genesis 1:14-15. Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. Let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. Let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens and give light on the earth. And it was so. So that was written a day or two ago. And isn't it amazing how correct that statement is at creation? Spot on. Nothing wrong with that statement at all. From a scientific point of view, that's pretty close. Genesis 1:16, he made the stars also. And now look at this. Think about what we talked about, all of the spinning and all the locations and the gravity, all that stuff working together, everything holding together. And look what God said. He made the stars and God placed them. Do you see the intelligent design of how God created? God did not pick up a handful of junk and go, be universe. God placed them. So that all of this stuff, if we had a mathematical equation to describe the forces and everything in our universe, it would blow us up. This room probably would not fill it. At any rate, God placed them. And there is that word again, the expanse of the heavens. Moses, as he writes these things, did not have in his mind that we live in a clay box. The expanse of the heavens is the word they use. Anyway, again, just beautiful. Couple more. Romans 1:20, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that men are without excuse. And then Job 38:33. So Job is being, quizzed by God, and there's a whole little section there in verse, I don't know where it starts, 31, 32, 33, somewhere in there, where he quizzes him about some things out in the universe. And he asks him about Orion and the Pleiades, and he says, can you lead forth a constellation in its season? Now, so when I was born in November. And so I was born under the sign of anybody know my sign? The Scorpion, okay? Why is that the case? Why am I a Scorpion? What does that mean?
Your little stinger.
Yeah. Why are November births, and it goes over into maybe October and December a little bit, it's maybe 6 weeks. Why am I called a Scorpion?
Because that's the time of year when you can really see those.
Because that is when that constellation is in the sky, and it's visible. Exactly right. So we are all, when we are born, we are given a sign because that's what's visible. Now, isn't it interesting? That's one of the things that God talks to Job about. Can you lead forth a constellation in a season? Again, he's making this reference to this amazing universe we got. Do you know the ordinances of the heaven or fix their rule over the earth? Anyway, pretty neat, some of the stuff that God quizzes Job about there.
What about the verse in Psalms that he calls the stars out by name?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and yeah, this is some of them. He talks about the stars singing, which is one of my favorite verses out there. Did you know stars sing? I used to teach physics in high school, and you can hear them. Okay, they sing. They sing. They move by. They have waves that put off a sound. Somehow or another, the psalmist knew that. That they do sing. Okay, you got me off track, but thank you very much. Why did God create such an amazing universe in which we live?
Because he wanted to.
He was bored.
Yeah, he was
We
bored.
wanted to confound the wisdom of man.
I can't even begin to fathom the mind of God.
We cannot even begin to fathom how great our God is.
So the answer to your question is, we don't know.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But we get to stand and wonder at the amazing God who did it.
Romans 1:20 tells us part of the reason why.
That's right.
He did make it so amazing.
Yeah.
And so clear that you got chance. I'm sorry, that's probably.
Yeah,
zero.
there's not a chance. There's no possibility. Zero possibility. Yeah, Russ.
You may be gonna get to this, but didn't you said something to me one time about they've done the calculations of the odds of just one part of that happening and how big that was?
Yeah. Yeah.
You were the one that said
Yeah,
something
well,
about
and
that.
that might have been in our conversation about DNA, but it goes over and over and over again that, you just take one little piece of that, and then you try to calculate the odds for it, and it's like 1 over, 25 sextillion or something, it is so tiny that it's basically zero from a probability point of view. And of course, what I have been told before is I have had conversations about some of these things with folks, is that they'll say, even if it is a chance out of 1 over 10 billion, there was still one chance, right? There's still one chance.
Chance of what?
Huh?
Chance of what?
One of something exists happening like this.
Accidentally, you mean?
Accidental, yeah. So if the odd was 1 out of 10 billion, there's still a 1. And of course, I don't know how you argue with people like that. I mean, you just kind of got to quit, at that point.
Layne,
Yes, ma'am.
Isaiah 45
Yes.
tells us why God created.
You wanna read that?
For thus says the Lord, who created the heavens, who is God, who formed the earth and made it, who has established it, who did not create it in vain, who formed it to be inhabited.
Yeah.
I am the Lord and there is no other.
Yeah.
And that sums it up.
You know what, and what's interesting about what Isaiah says is,
Isaiah 45.
he created this big shell so we would live in it. Now, that's again pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Patty. It's a great verse. There's a lot of other design that's out there. How are we doing on time? We got a little bit of time. I want to at least begin, and I'm not gonna bore you just completely with some of the design that's in the body, but again, I just want to remind us of this amazing design that we find all around us. It's in the universe, it's in the planet. It is also in our bodies so clearly. So here again is just some information about our body and the amazing design that's here. So in our body are cells. So there are about 30 different kinds of cells in the body. We have about 100 trillion cells or so. And all of these 100 trillion cells have decided to get together, and you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and we're all going to work together, and we're going to form a single human. Don't know how that happens, but it did. Now, each of the cells is made of 3 components. Now, let me do a little sidecar here. There is a study, and I cannot remember the name of what this is called. There's a study, and Dr. Hardy may remember what this is called. It is what is the minimum number of items that will create something? Okay, there's a study for this. And the example that I read this week talked about making a mousetrap. That a mousetrap requires a minimum of 6 items. If you don't have 6 items, you don't get a mousetrap. Okay? And the idea that you want the minimum always indicates somebody has designed it. So there's not goofy stuff in it. It's efficient. It is minimized to be the greatest functioning whatever it is that can happen. Okay? The cell is one of those. The cell has been minimized, as we look at it, into 3 main components. And that is the minimum number of things that could exist. A cell's got to have these 3. Any less, and it's not going to be a cell. Okay? You remember what that study is?
I don't know.
Are you talking about irreducible complexity?
Maybe so. Did I explain it close?
Yeah, the beauty of irreducible complexity is if you remove just one of those, they all have to exist at the same time, at the same place. You remove one, the whole thing falls apart.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was over here going, speak English.
At any rate, it's again a beautiful example of design. Okay? So the cell has 3 of these. The cell membrane, which, the cell membrane, of course, the stuff on the outside. Interesting enough, it allows good stuff in. It allows bad stuff out. But it keeps the good stuff in and keeps the bad stuff out at the same time. And then the question is, how does it know? How does it know that this little blob of stuff is good for me and this little blob of stuff is not good for me? I need to get rid of it. And if it's floating around out there, I don't want to let it in. I want to let this other stuff in. Somehow the cell knows that. The cell membrane is what takes care of that. The cytoplasm, which is the inside, works kind of as the working machine. It kind of is moving stuff around inside the cell. It coordinates nutrition, it coordinates waste removal, it coordinates repair, and it coordinates reproduction. All in this goo, the cytoplasm that's on the inside. Inside the cytoplasm, over 20 different chemical reactions take place constantly. Okay? There's always this chemical stuff going on in order to keep this thing alive and moving and functioning and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, on the inside is the nucleus, which is the brain, the control center, and of course, what we know is inside the nucleus is the DNA. From my studies, the DNA, if there is nothing else that anybody ever knows about, DNA should once and for all settle whether or not we have a creator. Okay? I've got an entire book in my office about DNA. It's probably a little more than we want to handle today. I do want to read a little stuff about DNA. Okay? It's just a little paragraph. The DNA is the most amazing molecule that is known to man. It stores information in what amounts to Morse code. This information is stored chemically. Now, that is something we can't do yet as humans. We cannot store stuff chemically. The DNA does. It is then read by a biologic agent, the RNA. So the RNA decodes the information that is stored on this long strand of stuff and activates the information when it's needed, when the time has come. The DNA in one cell contains over 1 billion chemical steps. That's in one strand of DNA. That information in a single cell is equivalent to the information content of every book in the world's largest library of more than 10 million volumes. Now, that statement was written by Carl Sagan, who's an evolutionist. Okay? But you can't get around that. How many of the books in our library does anybody think just happened? No, does anybody think that even one just happened? I heard one of the other videos I watched this week I thought was a pretty good illustration of this. He said the difference with DNA and whether or not it could just happen is think about taking a book and the words in the book are written in ink. So let's say that you took a bottle of ink and you threw it on a page. Okay? Are you going to form anything? Are you going to form any words? Probably not, right? So the ink is what we see in the DNA. It's all of the little pieces. And what evolutionists are saying, all of these little pieces fit together to form this code that creates life. And it's like taking a bottle of ink, pouring it on a pile of paper and going, voila, there's the Holy Bible, written out, word for word. Again, what kind of mind it takes to think that way, I do not know. That makes such zero sense to me. When you look at DNA, it screams at us. Somebody designed me and wrote me, because everything about life is contained in that strand of DNA, held together chemically, read biologically, naturally, without us having to do a thing. Now, is God sustaining life? Absolutely. Again, it just absolutely blows my mind. The DNA is a code. It was designed by someone to create life. One of the things I used to do, I taught this at the college several times, and one of the things when I got to this particular study, I'd bring in a box of sand, and in the sand I'd spell a word like hello or something in this box of sand, and I'd put it in the center of the room, and they'd come by and look at it, and I just ask them, how did that word get there? Did that word get there automatically, or does it look like somebody put it there? Even something that simple. Everybody goes, well, Dr. Heitz, you did that. I'm dumb, So if you go and you take that box of sand and you kind of start shaking it, what happens to the word? It disappears. That's what happens in nature. Anything that is ordered will go away. Okay? You can't shake that box until the word hello shows up. Matter of fact, you can't shake that box until any word shows up. And yet, they want me to believe that DNA just showed up. And it is the information that created me. I'm sorry, that is too much. It is too much. Okay. Any other comments? There's a whole bunch of other stuff about DNA, but you get the point, I think.
Don't we all have a different DNA?
Oh yeah, DNA is unique for every person. I believe it does. When I started going bald, I believe it was my DNA that told it to do that. I think everything about the human, perhaps even up till the day that we die, is driven by DNA. It develops everything. Our arms, our bodies are such that it fixes itself if it's hurt. It lubricates itself, okay, over and over again. It protects. This body of ours is pretty amazing. Wouldn't it be neat to have a pickup that self-painted itself? That self-corrected its engine when the engine went bad?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? Filled itself up with gas? Wouldn't that be nice?
Sure.
And yet that's what this is. This is an amazing machine. So anyway, DNA is great. And in my opinion, one of the most powerful evidences, if you will, that we've been created. This Big Bang stuff is, I don't have that much faith, okay? People have got on to me before for making that statement, but I don't. My faith in God is solid and secure because I've got great evidence for my God. And this right here is one of it, part of it, by the way. Okay, any other comments about any of that stuff?
Brandon's gonna be very happy to know you don't blame him for your lawsuit.
Well, there is that, I guess. I think we are probably at about 2 minutes. There's a lot of other design in the body. We might just kind of do this. I want to talk, and I want to read some more quotes from some evolutionists, which we'll do next week. But the tissues are muscles that we have. We have like 600 muscles in our body. You know, they work in pairs. So for my arm to do this, I've got to have opposing muscles, one to pull and one to push. You know, one to pull this way, one to pull this way. We know that muscles connect to the nerves, and all that stuff connects to the bones, and that's what causes growth. We've got muscles like the heart that pumps all the blood with our circulatory system. The eye is so complex. The ear, the brain is even evolutionists have said the brain is the most organized group of stuff in existence. Our brain is so amazing. Our skeletal system, you just think about the hand. Next week I'll read a quote about the hand that was made. It was published in the American Medical Journal, I think. Pretty neat quote about the hand, our circulatory system. You know, the blood pumps everything, feeds 100 trillion cells every 20 seconds. Now, how does that happen? Keeps everything alive, cleanses, takes bad stuff off, delivers the bad stuff where it needs to go into the liver, the kidneys, or into the stomach, or whatever it does. Just pretty amazing. And the other thing I want to do next week is talk a little bit about morality. From an atheist point of view, where do morals come from? So they will say that they believe in morals, but they just don't believe in God-ordained morals. So I'll show you the options really for morality from that an atheist has, and they're pretty diverse. So as it goes across. Dave, would you lead us in a closing prayer, please? Thanks.
Seven o'clock.